Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you, Sophia, for joining us on the first webisode of Beyond Disruption. I think this is
It's my
something that
pleasure, Hira. Thank you very much.
thank you, thank you for making time. So this is something I've been planning to do for some time now, and I'm glad that it's finally materialized. And the idea or the objective behind this is to explore clean technology in the Pakistani domain. Talk to people who are already in the sector, see what
Hmm.
they're doing, and kind of discuss what is the scope there is for Pakistan. And
Sure.
in doing that, of course, also what, given the current COVID situation, what it means for the future, right? So
Sure.
maybe we could start by you telling us a little bit about Linked Things, your organization,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you do, as Linked Things.
Okay. So Link Things is about 4 years old, more than 4 years old company now, based out of Karachi, with offices in Dubai and US as well. Um, the idea that Link Things follows is that it's a when this idea came to mind about 5 years ago, when we were looking at what are different opportunities available, there was a lot of hype of social media and data being gathered from social media. People were saying, like, look how Facebook is monetizing data, or how Google is monetizing data, and there were also a lot of questions on the privacy. We think that there is a lot of data that we give out on social media, but there's a lot more that we don't give out on social media, which can determine and help us uh, improve the lifestyles. So not just like, suggesting you write videos, or suggesting you connect to this person or that person, but we can actually give people slight nudges on improving their lifestyles, or improving their spendings on few things, and help them like improve their lives and improve their the business environment, improve environment, do something along those lines. So basically the idea is to use data, do analytics on it, and make it transparent to people what their consumption patterns are. For example, on the energy side or water side, what is it that they are consuming, and how they can actually improve it. If they are at a certain time improving 5-10 units of electricity, how they can actually improve that, reduce their consumption, reduce their load on this planet basically. So that's the idea.
Right.
We work with mainly businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Consumer space is a little difficult to work in Pakistan, but we started actually with the energy monitoring for the businesses, and
Right.
helping them monitor, and then analyze, and then save. Basically, that's the idea. Then we moved into water side as well, and then we followed with the agriculture and air quality. So these are the four areas where we concentrate. We gather data. Obviously, part of gathering data is that we build hardware and all that. So that's the tech part of it. But the philosophy is that there is a lot of data that all of us are that's our data trail, and how we can capture
Right.
and show it to you and improve you, rather than just suggesting connect with this person, but how to improve it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, from what I understand, it all began with your interest in sort of data gathering, and utilizing that data for productive cause, helping people improve their lifestyle, and eventually it's come into sort of like a business context, where you can actually monitor agriculture, water, air quality, aspects, energy for business,
Yes.
which are the four things you work on.
Yes.
And you can advise them on how to improve their performance, which makes it more economically viable, so to say, right?
Yeah.
For them as well.
Yes,
So,
economically viable. Yeah.
yeah. So, what kind of created your interest in getting into this? I was reading your profile very briefly, and I know you're coming from a tech and communications sort of data
Hmm.
background, but now you're kind of in the clean technology
Hmm.
space. So, how did that happen? What created your interest?
So I think the interest initially was in the hardware space. I started my career as a hardware engineer, as an embedded systems design engineer, And these ideas were there. Like when I started my career 22 years ago, we were discussing these ideas, like how to capture data, how to analyze it, how to uh, do the trend analysis, how to improve people's lives, businesses, our footprint on the planet Earth. But it was very difficult back in those days because the telecommunication was not that advanced. The devices were not available at that price point that you can actually do something like this here in Pakistan, like an emerging market, which are very cost sensitive market or price sensitive market. And and electricity. I think what has really helped us is that the devices can be powered through solar, so we can do a lot of outdoor data collection. The hardware that we use is itself consume a lot less energy, so you can run it outdoors, or you can actually um, I mean, the cost of doing it or cost of doing this is very little, and the GSM and Wi-Fi are available everywhere, so we can connect the devices quite easily without investing heavily in the networks and network design. So again, like data was the motivation, but when we said like what we can do, and with the whole hype around Internet of Things and IoT, so we think that IoT is basically the infrastructure layer for all these data that need that or big data or AI technologies that people are talking about. You can a lot of like people work on AI concepts, but they usually have either financial sector data, like stock market data that they use, and they do a lot of trend analysis on that data, and then they improve their skills on it. However, we think that 20 years ago people were laying down fiber to connect households. We think IoT is the infrastructure layer, which is going to connect things so that you get the data and you can work on it, and you can actually build different analytics and use it for primarily for savings, reducing your footprint on planet Earth, and then also predicting behaviors and predicting predictive analytics is one big part of it as well.
Yeah. So I think that's you've actually explained it quite in a simplified manner, because I know when a lot of people talk about this, they're not very clearly. At least I understood. I'm not sure some of our viewers have understood as well. So in case there are any questions, please feel free to just type them out to us. We'll respond as soon as we can get to that point as well. But so now you're talking about technologies that you're employing is everything from energy and solar to telecommunications with the GSMA support, and then obviously putting everything together through IoT. So if you were to explain IoT, like in a very simple few words, how would you explain it for, let's say, for the layman, because
Okay, so
every
yeah, Internet of Things basically is you start connecting things to the internet. So we all of us are connected. We are connected through our phones to the internet, and
Hmm.
like this conversation that we are having or Facebook. So we can actually we are all connected, and
Yeah.
mostly humans are connected now. There is definitely a population that is not connected to the internet. However, the Internet of Things talks about connecting things to the internet. How we can actually connect our refrigerator, our doors, our lights. If we talk about layman, our general experiences. So how or our air conditioners? How can I connect light, bulbs, air conditioners, refrigerators, doorbells, doors, gates, main
Hmm.
gate, and all that. So that is one part of it that you start looking at, or your washing machine and all that. So you connect to them so that you can actually manage them, control them from the internet. And so that's the part of automation part in it as well. And the second part is that you use that data. So automate it doesn't end at automation, because automation was always available, has been available for a long time. You know you can do
Hmm.
different kind of automation without being on the internet.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
idea is that you can actually bring the devices on the internet, you can control them, manage them, uh, and then get the data so that you can manage them remotely, as well as you can do analytics on that data. So when we connect air conditioners, we just don't switch them on and off. We can also tell you like how much your energy your air conditioner is consuming, so that you're aware of it, whether it is performing as per its rated values or its efficiency levels that were defined by the manufacturer, or over the time it has deteriorated. You also get to know what is the sort of how much units it's consumed based on what is the room temperature versus what is the outdoor temperature. So temperature difference that it is trying to maintain, and what is the cost of maintaining that temperature difference. And that's really very important because come summer we will all be switching our ACs on 16, and outdoor temperature maybe 40 degree 45 degrees. So there's a cost to it, and we all continue to pay that without realizing that it all can be saved. So we can tell you like exactly how much you are actually utilizing on per hour basis, on per temperature difference levels from outdoor versus indoor, and you can optimize it. Obviously everybody wants to, I think for primary reason everybody wants to get into this is to save costs. Energy costs are
Yeah,
rising, be that solar. I mean, if you have a solar panels on your rooftop, still I think you have to be a little bit mindful of what you're doing. And I
yeah,
think another thing that we have noticed in Pakistan is that we have so our sort of appliances, we continue to use them without getting them inspected. So we get them serviced definitely, but the
yeah,
devices continue to work. Like, so I also have air conditioner which is 20 years old, and
yeah,
the efficiency may not be the same. And there's another thing, we say that uh, we can call whatever we want to call our electricity supply company, but they are focusing more on supplying it and not measuring the losses at their demands on the demand side. So there are losses on the demand side that they are actually trying to fulfill by burning more oil, or producing nuclear energy on the supply side. I think we would like everyone to take the responsibility and see where their leakages are, where the losses are, and try to reduce those.
yeah. No, that makes sense. I think that's a similar argument that I've heard from a lot of other energy efficiency practitioners. Because if you could figure out the overall consumption and the reduction in or the reduction of waste energy, you'd actually have lower electricity bills and you'd be able to better manage the electricity supply. But you're absolutely right. It's again, I feel that somehow the economic principles are probably not matching, or the
Hmm.
understanding of that perhaps,
Hmm.
which is why we're like our air conditioners. We still tend to run the 20-year-old mindset onto a lot of new world situations. So there's a mismatch most of the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But having said that, I mean, I love the example about the air cons. But I know you're also focusing on clean technology, and from what I've read a little bit, a lot of air quality measurement.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about that?
So, I mean, part of our business is, since we are in from Karachi, we think there is little. We know urban centers more, and urban centers and emerging markets more, and it could be negligence from our governments, or we can say from environment protection agencies, or whoever we want to blame. But actually, we are the ones who are suffering from it. And air quality or air pollution is a major problem in all major cities across the emerging markets, be that Philippines, Manila in Philippines, Bombay, Calcutta, Sao Paulo, all these places, big cities are actually, the residents there are suffering uh, from inhaling different ailments because they inhale all this impure air. So air quality is something we thought that would be good to measure in Pakistan, especially all that happens in Lahore, or northern parts of central and northern parts of Pakistan during winter, and all year around in Karachi. We are lucky in Karachi that there is a sea breeze that takes some of the pollution away, but generally
Yeah.
we are inhaling pretty bad air. So what we were initially trying to convince some few businesses to invest in air quality monitoring across the city, and there was little bit of interest, some here and there, and we had approached banks, we had approached insurance companies. We thought that they would be the ones, or we even approached K Electric, and we said that, as a major stakeholder uh, of the city, it would be good that you do something as a public service or CSR activity for the population of the city. And people get this, like, we have not everybody has best of the respiratory conditions. A lot of
Yeah.
people have allergies, a lot of people have severe asthma, and we need to start monitoring and advising citizens where they can actually go, where they cannot go, and what are the best times to go to certain places and
Mm.
all that. And I think that as an advisory, and also we also discussed some ideas with people that, you could actually do, for example, across Shara FSL, you can put a few monitors, and you can tell them how much pollution they are generating, so that people get this kind of nudge that, I am sitting alone in a car and I'm driving from Malir to Metropole, and this is the, this is the harm that I'm doing. And if I can do ride sharing, or I can adopt, or I can demand public transport, I would be really good, because this is the air that our children are also going to inhale and are going to suffer with that. So I wasn't very successful in communicating that to the businesses to invest in it as a CSR activity. Then we had one or two individual air quality monitors with our customers, and some industries were also installing them to actually educate their employees, or to just tell the employees that air quality within the industrial unit is good for them to inhale. Then, in mid of February, this thing happened at Kimari, that nobody knew what kind of gas was there and all that, and people started talking about air quality. So we decided that let's do this. We had sensors, and I said, I mean, let's start it, and
Mm.
deploy 10 air quality monitors across the city. I spoke to a few friends, and we deployed air quality monitors, 10 of them, um, covering north, south, east, west of the city, starting from urban forest, uh, then Korangi, Frere Hall, Clifton Center. We also have all the way to Karachi University, and Gulzar Hijri, North Nazamabad. So we're covering about 10, and then another friend joined, and now we also deployed one at Timber Market. So there are 11 that we have deployed across the city, where you can see where exactly the peak is at what time, and it invariably coincides with the high traffic volume in that particular area. It's very interesting that, areas like Lucky Star have high pollution on Saturday night, because you can imagine all these buses are coming there. So that they have like unbelievably over 300 air quality index, I've noticed, on certain Saturdays. And in our office, which is on Shara FSL, it's unfortunate that the air quality is really poor when people come to drop their kids to school. So like at 8 o'clock and one
Yeah.
thirty, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's awful. Like, although Shara FSL is generally busy, but this is the time where it peaks. So
Peaks.
we
Yeah.
also have to be mindful, like, we are sending our kids with one car per kid, and a lot of there's harm, actually. We are doing our children harm by sending them in cars, and we, keep the cars
Yeah.
on, and not realizing what kind of long term effects there are. So we have
Yeah.
launched that portal uh, around early March, and collected data. And now we are building further analytics on it. So people can go to this website. It's called data.link-things.com. They can see historical trends. They can see how actually air quality improved um, since the lockdown. So, you can see that air quality was up here, and then suddenly it dropped a few points because of the lockdown. So it's
Definitely.
important to see that, and also realize how much pollution we are creating. The other, I think, interesting thing there is to see how urban forests, how low the air quality is at urban forests, or how good it is at urban forests, and that also can incentivize people to think about plantation and see that, okay, if we are driving, even then, let's look at growing more plants and bring more greenery into the city.
So I think it's great you already pointed out that how the traffic and how the traffic and the situation with uh,
Hmm.
you know kids being dropped to school and how the air quality has really changed over there. So in that context, how do you see what will be the new normal for clean tech in the coming days? I mean, you've seen that since the schools have been shut since the last couple of months, the kind of figures that you're getting now is significantly different.
Hmm.
So, what do you think will be the new normal for clean technology? Now, if the air quality improves, for example, would there even be a need to have these monitors? Or how would that affect other lines of business in the clean tech space?
So I think that the way people are talking about it and preparing, and if you follow the news, everybody is thinking that once this COVID-19 situation is over, they're going to pick up their keys and drive away to work. A lot of things may change, but still the plan. People have this kind of mindset still that they will resume their lives from where they left off. I think it's time for introspection. A lot of people are enjoying time with family, and a lot of people are talking about how they're cooking and all that in this time. But I think it's also important to see what kind of changes we can bring as individuals and as businesses. What are the and I think clean tech is the future. I mean, if we have to survive, we have already been talking about climate change and all that for the last 2 3 years. There was this a lot of things, and I think COVID-19 has given us a chance to reflect and see how we can actually create further impact, and also realize that I think when we will go back, no matter what happens, we will still be driving cars, and that end with this whole thing about isolation and not mixing. We will be saying it's a public transport we don't need, and let's look at more cars out there. So I think we have to be we have to strike a balance, and these air quality monitors are really important.
Hmm.
We can really tell you, like, if you go to the website, you can see like at what time actually the traffic peaks, and you can actually match with that. So that will give you an idea, like even like if you want to maintain certain air quality, then we'll have to like balance the traffic load. This is
Yeah.
all data for the policymakers to decide, like what time it is awful in Korangi, and the impact of, we can even do that kind of analytics, and we're going to do that, like impact of Korangi on North Nazabad, or impact of Shara Faisal on Frere Hall or something like that. This needs to be done, and then trying to balance out. I think with more data, what we will be able to achieve eventually is that bringing out some balance. So people will still
Yeah.
drive. And especially with COVID-19, I don't think that people will be demanding more public transport. But I think our demand should be that there has to be public transport, there has to be shared rides. People need to go from place A to B, because the way the city is set up, like people live in one corner and they work on the other corner. They travel, some people travel 40 50 kilometers every day. uh,
Hmm.
if this is, and there's no other way, so we have to talk about lifestyle changes with
Yeah.
this, and then policymakers can also use this data.
Yeah. So we're principally in agreement that environment and climate will remain a hot topic,
It will.
even when the COVID-19 situation cools down, and when we go back to our past life, perhaps in the economic context, people will be putting so much pressure on business to kind of produce more, cover up the economic loss. So perhaps climate will become even more of a burning issue. So
Yes, and I think we have to. I think we'll all have to go back and think how we can actually sustain, make this whole thing sustainable, right? We cannot afford these kind of lockdowns. So I think in a way we'll have to see how we can actually economically we cannot
Yeah.
sustain these kind of lockdowns. Everybody is talking about that, but
Yep.
they we'll have to find the way we can coexist with other creatures on
Mm.
this planet, be that
Yeah.
animals or plants, and then limit our expansion and our sort of
Yeah.
expansion on the planet. So we'll have to see that how we can actually,
Yeah.
and I think nobody's talking about that right now. People are, I mean, some people are home enjoying their family time. Some people are too much affected with this that they are actually starving, and we have to find balance there as well, like and also
True.
talk about food and health security for everyone.
True.
um,
So yeah. Please complete your point. I'm sorry.
Yes, I
You were
was
saying
saying
something.
that I hope that we come out of this as more responsible citizens,
Yeah.
more empathetic. Also realize that it's not just us. There are different kinds of people, and people have different needs. So come out of this asking for universal health, education, food,
Yeah.
so that we don't create these kind of mess and ugly scenes on the street anymore, and then also find out how we can actually adopt clean tech, have environment friendly business practices. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we also have to increase the cost of doing business, which basically means we shouldn't be doing cutting corners and saying that some people will be paid less, or some people will come on motorcycles, or some people will take the rickshaw, or some people will do this or that. I think we'll have to. I personally feel that cost of doing business should increase, more
Mhm.
environment responsibility on people, and more social responsibility on people and
I
businesses.
think, yeah, I completely agree with that. That makes perfect sense. At least I agree because I believe in it. It may not be true for a whole lot of other people, but yeah, I do concur with that. But while we've been talking, we've had a couple of
Yes.
comments and questions. So I think Yasir asked us something about if we're a smart city, and
Hmm.
more specifically, what should the government of Sindh, amongst other things, be doing? Not sure with reference to what, but I think if in terms of the air
Smart city.
quality or the clean tech, I mean, yeah. So if would you elaborate on that?
So I think we're not a smart city yet. Smart city has multiple components in it. Data collection and IoT is one thing. I think smart city talks about provision of utilities to their citizens before they actually go to the smart level. So the basic infrastructure is even missing in Karachi. We see that there are parts of the city that do not get line water. There are parts of the city that do not have 24/7 access to electricity. So I think
Yeah,
we need to first look at the infrastructure, but that shouldn't stop us from moving towards a smart city where we are talking about traffic management, we are talking about space for pedestrians, we're talking about public transport, we are talking about air quality monitoring, we're talking about provision of water and provision of quality water to to the citizens, so that we stop buying these bottled water. All of us are now buying these bottled waters
yeah,
without realizing that they actually, these are coming from RO plants, and these RO plants are actually sucking water from sometimes 100 200 meters beneath the earth. I'm exaggerating, but that's what they're doing, and that is actually drying up the soil there. And
yeah,
you know most of these are again the way the city, the unevenness of the city, that these are actually established in underprivileged areas of the city.
yeah,
We have seen buildings collapsing. We usually say, yeah, it could be that it is substandard construction material, but on the other hand, it is also that we are actually making the soil unstable. So, I
obviously.
mean, nobody actually sees that. We should be like, we say, okay, we'll buy bottles and bottle. Some people can pay for the bottle, some people are paying less for the bottle, but actually, we are destroying our city. So,
Yeah,
so first, I think provision of quality water, quality electricity. But on the other hand, we should start talking about these things so that whoever lays the new pipelines or whoever is supplying the water supplies it on based on the what is available in terms of latest technology.
No, I yeah, that makes sense, of course. And I've actually visited one RO facility where I have seen them, trying to excavate that 100 200 feet underground tank, because obviously they were running short of water, so they had to gain access to some more.
Exactly.
So then
So,
I think there's Safi here from Vcast. Sorry, you're saying
mm,
something. Please
no,
complete what.
no, it's okay. It's okay. Let's take the question.
Yeah, so Safi from Bcast, he says, in terms of monitoring electricity usage, is it viable to install IoT-based sensors on power infrastructure, individual transformers, and what would it cost?
So I think these are also available. We have done some pilots with K Electric as well on monitoring on the individual PMT side as well. Um, the cost is not high. I think compared to the losses, if we look at it, what are the losses, and not just direct losses in terms of electricity losses along the line, but losses to consumers, um, loss due to inefficient supply, loss due to less supply or no supply, or loss of supply. So I think if we accumulate all of this, so somebody has to have a big picture to
Yep.
to identify the ROI of it. I think everybody when and since we are a startup, we actually work on a very tiny level. Like we go to customer by customer and by customer. However, I think there is a need to work on a mega or macro level and looking at what are the inefficiencies and what is the cost of reducing those inefficiencies. And when we look at reducing the cost of those inefficiencies, we'll realize that ROI is not that difficult to calculate. Uh,
Yep.
but right now, I think uh, we need willingness, I think, to do it. I honestly feel that it is the willingness, and we
Yep.
all have to say that okay, this is where we want to go, and somebody needs to work on a plan, and we're happy to support with whatever information that we can provide, and hardware and technology.
And I think Safi also had a very good suggestion that for I mean, while the willingness is of course required, sometimes you do need to force people into doing things, especially when the masses are
Hmm.
unaware of a whole lot of things. And I think I'm all in for Safi's suggestion. He's saying you should link your air quality monitors to Cold War era air raid sirens, and once it reaches a certain level, everybody should just get up and go home.
Yeah, I think we should do it. I mean, but the thing is that who's gonna listen? And it has to come. I'm happy to put sirens up there or alerts. We actually thought about sending people SMSs saying that air quality is so bad. You can subscribe, like if you are in
Yeah.
Lucky Star area or Gulistan Jor or whatever area you are, you can subscribe to the air quality updates. So we are working on these things. So we don't have to blare the sirens, but yeah, why not? Can be done.
Yeah. And then I think Shazan is saying that we don't have much budget to develop our infrastructure, but um uh, then again, I think coming back to what you said earlier, the willingness is required. So if there is willingness on part of all actors, then of course, it's going to be much better overall. And of course, Abdul Basit is here, and he's actually it's pretty interesting. He introduced himself also a little while ago, and
Hmm.
he's the deputy director environment at the planning and
Hmm.
development department. And I think his concern is that if you have these sirens, they'll never really silent down. So I think your option of having the SMS is definitely way better. That
Yes.
people stay updated out of choice and not out of the noise pollution scenario. But I'd actually like to open up for more questions if there's anybody who'd like to ask, in terms of what Link Things does, what they're doing, the kind of things Sophia's been talking about. We'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has them. So I no, I guess I think that was actually quite spot on because you were explaining things so well. Unlike
I
most
hope
engineers
so.
who,
I hope so.
yeah, yeah, unlike most engineers, I think it was pretty cool that uh, I mean, I understood. I know there are a couple of other people here also who are
I
completely
hope you have a good stuff.
people. But in that context, Sophia, any closing words? Anything that that's like a burning point for you that or even from a clean tech perspective, if you'd like to give our give a message out to our startups in the clean tech space on why people should be in this space?
So I think clean tech is definitely the future. We all have to act responsibility, and COVID-19, as I've said, has given us an opportunity to have a little bit of introspection and see what are the things that we have been doing wrong. There are a lot of there have been a lot of conversation on climate change, and reducing our excessive footprint on different how we are, or our consumption. I think so we should identify what is really important. The things that are really important are survival on this planet. That should be the
Definitely.
first priority, and then look at how and there are a lot of opportunities in clean tech. I think with the uh, you can you don't have to be really in the IoT space. IoT space definitely has a certain advantage, as I said, that it is an infrastructure layer. So when you to work with industries or utility providers or cities or even businesses, you look at how you can actually optimize their operations, reduce the losses. And we also have to look at always the big picture. So even if I'm controlling one air conditioner and trying to optimize its operation, it actually has a ripple effect on the macro level, where we are able to reduce the pressure on our utility providers, and to produce that kind of electricity. We reduce a lot of waste. So all of us have to contribute. Similarly, on the water side, we all can look at how what our consumption is. Our app, for example, on the water side, tells you what exactly is the consumption per household. I always tell people, I was at a conference last year. I was at Habib University on water, and there were 20 people on the panel, and they were discussing water shortages in Karachi, and nobody could give you actual per day consumption of water. And everybody, because they were all from different departments, so irrigation department has something else, water supply board had something else. So everybody had a different view, different trade associations and all that. I think if we have to move forward, we'll have to start monitoring
Yeah.
first, building new infrastructure for the city. If we want to take the city to a smart city level, I think we'll have to start monitoring, be a lot more inclusive, consider industries as well as underprivileged areas of the city where people are cramped up. We have to look at their supply as well, so that they don't go out with their pots and pans to collect water. Their line water has to be available to everyone. So um, so that's the kind of things that we need to be looking at, I think.
Yeah. I know. I think that's great. Sorry, please, just.
And for the startups, I think there are a lot of opportunities. I think wherever I go in the city, I think that can be fixed through some kind of big data application or IoT application or AI. So a lot of things can be fixed. I think in a way, we are blessed that there are so many problems around or challenges around us that we can actually just pick one and solve that. So we don't
Yeah.
have to really find a challenge. There are a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah, so I think like Yasser pointed out, it's a beautiful mess, and yes, it is
This,
civic tech, clean tech. I think it's one and the same. So every time you start addressing the SDGs in some way, it has to be about civic tech. And yes, so I really like what Abdul Basit has written. He's saying we need to develop public forums where we can interact with government people and innovative people, general public too. I think that's what Yasser responded to and said it's called civic tech. So yes, there is a need for that. We're trying to link all of this up, get people together, and
hmm.
we'd love to if there's anything that the government is obviously willing to do. We've got solutions like yourselves, Sophia's, and other people as well, who are civil society people, individuals who'd love to contribute. I think there are multiple groups already on WhatsApp also that discuss the
Yes.
same. But yes, if there was an open forum, there'd be a lot of people who'd love to contribute. So I'm really hopeful that once we're out of this situation, there's a lot more to look forward to for us, for all of us. in the environmental space as well. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much for being here
Pleasure,
with us.
Hira. Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you so much for to everybody who kind of joined in and joined in the discussion. It always adds more value. So we're going to sign out, and inshallah, next
Thank
week
you.
we'll try to bring somebody else to continue to the discussion with us as well. So Allah Hafiz, have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Welcome, Allah Hafiz.